Hello there, thanks for joining us on your channel of choice at this time, Africa Independent Television AIT. Welcome to Focus Nigeria, your program that puts the searchlight on topical issues in the polity. My name is Benga. I'm really glad to be here this Monday morning. The news of the release of 82 of the remaining abducted Chibok school girls at the weekend is the fresh breath that has changed the negatives in the polity. Even though, as expected, this is Nigeria, the polity has become so poisoned and so polarized that those who will criticize everything and indeed anything have started already, in spite of this good news. But for majority of Nigerians, the release of the Chibok girls has been a calming and soothing balm for a nation in search of relief from a string of negative events. The 82 girls whose release was made possible again by long periods of negotiations with the Boko Haram faction holding them with the assistance of the International Red Cross and the Swiss government. From a location in Banki, very close to the Chadian border, Banki in Borno State, very close to the Chadian border, the girls were airlifted to Abuja late Sunday afternoon. The wounded among them were immediately taken for first-hand attention at the DSS Medical Center, while later in the evening, they were conveyed to the presidential villa in two buses for a meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari.
I have made some undertakings on behalf of the country, which I hope, having gone through what you have gone through, that you will mobilize yourself and continue your education under the supervision of the federal government agencies in your area. I congratulate your parents for surviving the torture, as it were, waiting for you day in and day out for the years that have passed. And I want you to remember at every stage what the country and especially what your parents have gone through and your constituencies. So the promise which Nigeria has made to continue your education, social welfare facilities will not be in vain. I am very pleased to have personally met you, and I assure you that the presidency will personally supervise the performance of those trusted with social welfare commitments made by the federal government.
Your Excellency, I want to say before you this evening, there are 82 Chibok girls who have been released. And this is actually due to all the resources you have provided for the security, military, and intelligence agencies to perform our job.
And reactions came in thick and fast over the released Chibok girls. Members of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign were beside themselves with joy as the news became confirmed that indeed 82 of the abducted girls, for whom they have camped day and night in sun and in rain under security threats and abuses, have indeed been released. The scenes at the Unity Fountain in the Central Business District of Abuja, the rallying ground for their Bring Back Our Girls cries, were emotional as the members arrived one after the other on Sunday.
President! Today is just a reflection of the fact that hope endures, that as long as you continue to stand for justice, as long as you continue to say, look, we're not going to allow this to happen. I don't have to know anybody from Chibok. I hadn't even heard of Chibok, as a matter of fact, before this happened.
What we also say is that the ones that have perpetrated these crimes should be brought to justice.
Demand for the rescue continues still, and we will encourage the federal government and all the development partners that are working on the rescue for negotiation for the release of the girls to really intensify effort.
Our hope for the remaining 113 that are still out there is that they are brought back soonest, if possible today.
They have released 82. And even if my daughters are not among, I'm still hoping.
I don't know yet, because they have not released the names. But I have hope that she will be among them. Even if she's not among them, she will be among the next people that will come.
Such hope expressed by some of the parents of the abducted Chibok girls. And that hope is what has been keeping so many of them alive. And still talking about reactions to the news of the released Chibok girls, Senate President Dr. Bukola Saraki commended the efforts of the federal government, the tenacity of President Muhammadu Buhari, and the direction he gave the anti-insurgency fight, which did not compromise the security of and safety of Nigeria, even while negotiating the release of the abducted girls. The Senate President, in our statement, expressed delight at the release of the Chibok girls, saying the prayers and well wishes of Nigerians and that of the global community had led to the release of the girls, and expressed the hope that the remaining girls will still regain their freedom in no distant future. And the PDP National Caretaker Committee, in a statement by its National Public Secretary, Prince Dayo Adeyeye, expressed happiness over the release of the girls, but criticized the swap we saw the exchange of the girls with some Boko Haram commanders. And of course, the All Progressive Congress APC has also reacted swiftly to the release, praising the Buhari government and its determination, saying this is a fulfillment of a pledge made by the APC during the campaigns, not only to ensure the end of the insurgency, but to also secure the release of all those that have been abducted, including the Chibok girls that have become the signposts for the Boko Haram insurgency. Well, all is well that ends well, you will say. The girls are currently undergoing debriefing and might be reunited with their parents shortly. And shortly after receiving the girls, President Muhammadu Buhari jetted out of the country to the United Kingdom for further medical attention. A statement by the President's Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Femi Odekunle, said the President would consult with his doctors on the next line of treatment. Odekunle said the duration of the President's stay would be determined by his doctors after the examination. He, however, said the President had already written to the National Assembly and has transmitted full powers to the Vice President as required by the Constitution for the Vice President to be acting President. It's understood that the two leaders of the National Assembly, Senate President Bukola Saraki and Speaker Yakubu Dogara, both were at the presidential villa to consult with the President before he jetted out last night. Okay, our discussion is up next after a comprehensive review of events of the last 24 hours or so. One event that Nigerians eagerly await this week is a report of the three-man panel led by the Vice President that was set up to investigate two different developments that impacted on the anti-corruption efforts of the government. Since December 2016, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Babashir David Lawal, had been in the eye of the storm over allegations that he abused his office by awarding contracts to companies in which he has interests under the presidential initiative on the Northeast Pine. The Senate has since submitted its final report, but before then, the heat generated by that issue had become too much, and so the President had ordered the suspension of the SGF while directing a three-man committee consisting of the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami SAN, and the National Security Advisor to Babagana Mogunu to investigate the allegations against the SGF. Now, the other issue which the VP's committee was also asked to investigate as well is the over 13 billion naira cash sum recovered by the EFCC at a residential apartment in Ikoyi, Lagos. The National Intelligence Agency, NIA, claims ownership of the money as well as the apartment where the money was found. While Nigerians believe that the claims are spurious, indeed several names were bandied around as being owners of the money. While the Rivers State government also claimed ownership, alleging that the money was proceeds of the sale of his gas turbines by the last administration in the state, even though the Rivers State government had threatened legal action if the money was not returned to it within 7 days. It's instructive that up until last Friday, when the EFCC applied for a final forfeiture of the money to the federal government, nobody, not even the NIA, nor the Rivers State government had filed any formal request for the money to be given to it. The Osborne Road Ikoyi Cash Hall is the last in what has become curious cash recoveries by the EFCC in what was attributed to the efforts of whistleblowers. We will be looking at all of this shortly as a member of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, PACAC, Professor Femi Odekunle, joins me to review the activities of the PACAC and, of course, all of these latest developments. That will be after this short break.
They see chaos and conflicts. We see community action for good governance. They see poverty and want. We see perseverance and the will to go on. They see economic law. We see the ingenuity and creative spirit of our people. We are AIT News, fresh, authentic views of Africa. How would you rather see the world? AIT News, all sides, all the time.
All right. If you're just joining us, a very warm welcome to you. My guest is here, Professor Femi Odekunle. He is here, a member of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, PACAC. Beyond that, Professor Odekunle is a renowned criminologist. Prof, good to see you.
Pleasure once again.
Let's start on the good news, the release of the 82 additional Chibok girls. We are gradually getting there. How did you receive the news on Saturday?
It was sudden, but not unexpected, because one of the pressure points against the administration, particularly by the Bring Back Our Girls, is on this return. And I know that even though government may not be, I can guess that even though government may not be talking, they must not have been sleeping. They must have been working within the context of security precautions to bring back those girls. So I seize the opportunity to join millions of other Nigerians to congratulate the federal government and to facilitate with the families of those girls who have been returned, with the prayer and hope that the remaining will be returned very, very soon. And secondly, I want to seize the opportunity also to express, along with other Nigerians, that my heart goes out to Mr. President, and that I wish him journey mercy to and fro, and a successful medical attention, so that he will come back and face his responsibilities without much stress.
Okay, I'll come back to that latter issue that you raised now, but still on the girls. You know, this is Nigeria. No matter what happens, we also still have the doubting Thomases. I've been reading a lot since yesterday. Some are saying, oh, these guys couldn't have been held in captivity all this while. They are looking very robust. Those people who have pointed that out also fail to see that among the girls, you have one that already has
broken arm.
There's one that is amputated. Could have been due to anything. People are not talking about all of this. They're just talking about the girls that are looking fine, or like the first set of girls that were released and all of that. I've also, the PDP again was also raising the issue about we didn't need to swap the girls with known criminals, Boko Haram commanders and all of that. But this morning, I think I got from one side that those that were released actually, that were swapped with the girls, the Boko Haram commanders were actually not Nigerians, but Chadians who are members of the Boko Haram. But then, is there anything that is too much to give in exchange for these girls, including cash?
Yes, I am not against criticisms of government. In fact, all my life, I've been on the side of criticizing government, not recklessly, but on the basis of what I know and what I think ideologically or analytically should be. So a lot of rumors are going around. Some, I know somebody told me last night that actually the governor of Bono actually was aware that the guests would be taken, allowed the guests to go for the exams, but allowed the principal, being a Muslim, to leave. And I said, this is ridiculous. How can the governor think that way? So the summary of what I'm trying to say is that government and people of good mind should ignore this kind of rumor mongering.
Negatives.
Now, why would government keep those people, 82 girls, for 7 months after the first release? And yet, the same government was under pressure. And the return of the girls is one of the flagship of the mantra of the government to say, we will get these girls back. What would they gain by keeping them for 7 months after the first release and then surfacing them now? No, I think those things should be ignored. There will be people, regardless of what you do, they will be partisan. But even in America, to a certain extent, people respond to policies and issues in a partisan manner. So one should not be too disappointed about the reaction of some PDP people saying that those girls must have been somewhere and they brought them. And the issue you raised concerning swap,
yeah.
From the knowledge we have, in almost all countries of the world, whether during the Irish Republican Army confrontation with the British government, whether the Russian-Chechen conflict, whether the Americans in Iraq or Afghanistan, or with the Taliban, people do exchanges. And we must praise the government for coming out to be honest, to say, yes, we swapped. And I agree with you that even if it's to pay money, and some people will argue that they will use the money to go and buy more arms ammunition. But at this point in time, it is bringing succor to minimum of 82 families who have been distressed for years to bring those girls back. And like you said, these people may be Nigerians or Chadians. Even if they were not, government and the security agencies are not stupid not to have properly debriefed those they are releasing. How do you know they are not even following them up? How do you even know that some of them might not be double agents now for the federal government? What I'm trying to say is that I can't say more than that, but I'm suggesting that our security agencies are not stupid. They know who they release and how they will release them, and perhaps how they will follow up. So, and I think we should leave the discussion at that point in time. I agree with you that people are saying that, I don't want to say rubbish, but we must congratulate the government for releasing these girls, and we are hoping for more releases, not at any cost, but at reasonable bargaining conditions.
You raised the other issue of the president's medicals. Yes. Again, for a president of a country, after several weeks of controversy as to his state of health, to then just drop it on hot potato on the citizens that, well, I'm taking off for medicals this time around. There's no specification as to when I'm going to come back. It will depend on when my doctors say I'm fit and all of that. But then the other side of the argument will be that he has done the needful, which is that he has transmitted power, full powers, to his vice as acting president of the country. To that extent, one may say there's no vacuum.
It's not to any extent. There is no vacuum. He has done the needful, like you said, as required by the Constitution. And he did one when he first came back, regardless of some developments later, which, if you understand politics, you will appreciate what happened. He came, he said, he's never been this sick in his life. I understand he also said that he even suffered, in quote, blood transfusion. And he said he was going to continue to rest while Professor Shimbaju will continue the work. Suddenly, by the beginning of the following week, as if the chessboard had changed, that he wasn't going to be resting, he was going to try to work. I don't know what happened. But nevertheless, the matter has reached a head for him to go back to the same country for continued medical attention. And in the process, his VP will continue to act. And he said he has sent a letter to the National Assembly as required by the Constitution. Now, I don't know what the stress is. As far as I'm concerned, I'm using your word. He has done the needful. He's not well. He's going back for medical, as he said he would before. He's been transparent.
In a democracy, is it not incumbent on the president to come full circle with Nigerians as to his state of health, what exactly is wrong with him? Will the medicals put him in a position whereby he can continue in office, or is it time for him to just say, okay, I need to just leave the scene, let Nigeria move on, let me attend to my health? Because those are arguments in the public space.
Yes, I'm aware of that argument. I've told you before, I don't belong to any political party because I see the elites, the political class, as one and the same two pence in terms of their character and orientation and lack of ideology. But I'm a supporter of President Buhari on the basis that he is anti-corruption and anti-indiscipline. And as a social scientist, I can tell you, any country that has our level of corruption, our level of indiscipline, cannot make progress. Therefore, any leader I have, regardless of the name of the party, that is devoted to attacking that major problem, I would support him. So that is why I'm a Buhari person. Now, having said that, I do not see how what has happened has derailed matters. He is sick. Now, to give details of what is wrong with you, it's a kind of invasion of privacy to some extent. He says he's not well. He says he has had blood transfusion. Now, what will Nigerians gain from knowing whether it was headache, or whether it was prostate, or whether it was tumor, or whether it was something in the stomach? He says he's not well. He's going for medical. And I know him to be a patriotic Nigerian. And if the time comes that he could no more even delegate, I believe he's somebody who's patriotic enough to say, I have to go. I don't think he's somebody who willingly want to die on the job, or who willingly allow some group of people or cabal outside of the Constitution to be running the country in his name. Secondly, I don't think the vice president, by his pedigree, is somebody who would make himself available for such underground, untoward arrangement for this country that is the largest in Africa, that is so populous, that is so energetic. It is not possible. So I think people should be patient. He said he's going away. He doesn't know how long it will take this time, so that you do not say it's going only for 10 days or for 1 month. When the time comes, if he's getting overextended, I'm sure the leadership of the country, the leadership of the party will arrive at a settlement that is in the interest of the country. In other words, I don't think there's anything to worry about now concerning this matter. I think, as we have been doing before, because of his character, because of his pedigree, because of his devotion to fighting corruption and indiscipline, we should just pray for him, first as a human being and as a president, to have a successful medical attention. It is when the thing is being prolonged that people can start raising their voices. But there's no need to be foaming in the mouth now on this matter.
All right. Let's get back to the anti-corruption part. Between the last time you were here and now, a lot has happened. A whole lot has happened. First of all, we have seen an aspect of the anti-corruption strategy, which I like to believe is a fallout of your committee's work, has come to full circle. That's the whistleblowers policy. First of all, confirm or deny whether the whistleblowers policy is one such suggestion coming from your committee.
The whistleblower policy, I would say, is not unrelated to our position or our advisory. Even though I would believe that the whistleblower policy should actually be part of a structured approach, part of a structured strategy, and that the whistleblower will only be just an element of that structure. But
it should be just a part.
A part.
Okay.
Rome was not built in a day, so it is believed, I hope, that over time, things like that would develop. The whistleblower policy, in the beginning, most people were sort of opposed to it. They were talking about the legality, about the workability, but that is the argument. We must think out of the box because our problem of corruption is so humongous, so pervasive, so systemic that the normal legalistic approach may not allow the fight to succeed. So the whistleblower policy is that kind of out-of-the-box thinking. But I, as somebody who has been in the field for long, believe that it should not just be taken out on its own.
Okay.
It should be part of a structured approach.
When you say it should be part of a structured approach, should the whistleblower policy be standing on something, or something should stand on it? Because if you have components of a structure and you don't arrange them properly, you could actually put the cart before the horse. In which case, you begin to see a situation whereby it is the tail that is wagging the dog instead of the dog wagging the tail. In which case, you will not get the required result. If you get a result at all, it will be a negative result that you will be getting.
Okay, I'll get back to that. But let me say, for some time, I've not been with you. I think the last time I was with anybody on this matter was like...
You hadn't even launched your report that time.
Was last weekend on NTA, Movements for Truth, myself and IBM Aruna on this matter. Yes, the reason being that at a point in time, I was getting frustrated about the anti-corruption fight. To me, it wasn't moving as fast as it should, as wide as it should be in terms of coverage, whether in terms of the number of areas or the number of years back. And as a social scientist, I can see the problems that will emanate from those laxities. So I had invitations to talk about the anti-corruption fight, and I sort of demurred because the time I was very happy. There was a week in which my depression on the matter was so deep. That's the week in which about 5 or 7 cases were lost in the court.
In one fell swoop.
Yeah, and then there was one of the senior advocates of Nigeria, who was lying down on the floor and making noise that he has won 7 cases against EFCC and so on and so forth, which brought to my mind the problem of the legalistic approach. It is out of the problem of the legalistic approach, not against other kinds of crimes, as I've always said, but against corruption. Corruption by its nature, by the kind of perpetrators, the socioeconomic status of the perpetrators, the socioeconomic status of the enforcers, and of the administrators of justice are similar. So that has an effect on the effectiveness of the legalistic approach. I'm not saying law should not be obeyed. I'm not saying there should be no rule of law. I'm not saying there should be no so-called fair hearing. I'm not saying there should be no due process. No. But they are abused. They are abused, as it were, by the operators of the system and the beneficiary. I gave an argument last week that one of the hooks, deception of the legal system, the one we inherited from the British, and our elites and lawyers who benefit from its operation have been intensified, is that we are equal before the law.
Is it a hoax?
It's a hoax. It's a hoax because you see what you do is that you attribute abstract equality to a people that are substantially unequal economically, socially, and politically. And that is why it is that even though most of the criminals are elites in terms of the damage they do to our economy and polity, they are outside. The people who are in prison are the people are the people who are socioeconomically disadvantaged.
Disempowered.
That is one of the consequences. That's one of the consequences of the hoax. And I remember in South Korea, what they did about 3 decades ago is that they got together, the elites of different ilk, to say this corruption indiscipline is going to ruin this country. We must reach an agreement that a stop must be put to it. And now, that shows you how it was easy to take their president with all our powers to say you leaked documents to somebody who should not. That is corruption, and you must leave office. And you could see there was no question of party A, party B. The population, the different political parties agreed that Madam must go, even though she had full support. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So I'm getting back to the whistleblower. The reason why that kind of thing, that kind of approach is because of these deficiencies of the legal system, in which the people who benefit are actually the perpetrators of corruption, are actually the lawyers who make money from it. Take the question of Justice Ademola. How do you know? You know now is one of the cases in which they said you can go, okay, that you are not guilty, no case against you. I will not tell you, but I will indicate to you that a lot of senior advocates were contacted by the appropriate authorities to be the prosecution, to be the prosecutors. They all declined. They say they can advise behind the scene, but they cannot go and prosecute. You see the relationship between perpetrators of corruption and those who are supposed to deal with it. That is, so these kind of things are pointed out. That is why I argued that knowing how far corruption has been with us, knowing how deep it has become, knowing what damage is, because most of our problems could be solved if corruption was reduced to the barest minimum. Little things that could be done if people are sincere. Take security vote, for example. What is the basis of the security vote? Why can't you give the money to security personnel and monitor and account for it? So it's like slush fund, and yet you want elections to be.
And it's not probable. What
yes,
I mean is that you cannot inquire into how
and you want elections, and you want elections to be corruption free. I'm just giving an example. So when we found out this kind of thing, when I thought about it, say we cannot get rid of our legal system. It is what we have inherited. We can continue to improve it, like the Admission of Criminal Justice Act of 2015, like certain bills that are in front of Parliament. Yes, we should do that. But with corruption in particular, there is no need to think out of the box. So I suggested that we could have within the powers of the executive, without breaking any law, what I call Presidential Truth and Restitution Task Force.
Let me get that. Presidential
Truth
and
Restitution Task Force on Corruption.
Restitution Task Force on Corruption.
Whistleblowing will just be part of that task force.
What's the essence of this?
Okay. Now, the essence is this. You get a group of people with integrity. You know, a task force is different from an agency. Mm-hmm. You give them a particular task to achieve within a particular period. Now, this task force will not be a commission like a judicial commission. Mm-hmm. It will not be one that will be under the Ministry of Justice. Mm-hmm. It will not be the one in which you have people in uniform going up and down, arresting people. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised you haven't forgotten, because I'd given this idea.
My worry is, wouldn't this be one of such knee-jerk approaches to solving this problem?
No, it will
rather than a more concerted effort. Just like the whistleblower policy already is being seen as a knee-jerk approach that it was not well thought out. For instance, nobody thought that one person could be keeping as much as 445 million naira for the purposes of wanting to change it to hard currency and somehow we abandon it somewhere. Or nobody probably could think that one individual could build a safe somewhere in one village and keep as much as $9 million in hard currency, in hard cash, in such a place. No, I'm sure nobody thought of that when you were thinking of a whistleblower.
Yes.
Because if you thought of that, you would then now be thinking of 5% commission for one individual for blowing the whistle or something.
Now, I'm happy you are able to make the connection. That without the whistleblower, some of the revelations we have had, could the country have had such revelations?
Yeah, but isn't it a knee-jerk approach? That's what I'm thinking. No. That it was not well thought out through.
No, I would not say it was not well thought out. Usually in all countries of the world, governments are afraid. You know, government is usually run by establishment people, civil servants, politicians, and so on and so forth. Take, for example, now, Professor Akinyemi, who I respect, Chief Anyauku, who I respect. They have come out to say, please, this matter of the NIA, you should not let people know what actually happened. Now, that is an establishment approach. Somebody like me, I believe, I've argued there, that the president should let us know, except for reasons of strategy. The timing may be delayed, but actually it is important, right, for people to know what happened with that money. But we are losing track now. The argument we are giving is that you are saying it was a knee-jerk approach. And I was saying that it's beneficial. Without it, we wouldn't know some of these loot that is being found all over the place. And I argued recently that, you know, our leaders, most of our leaders, they worship money like mammon, okay? But funny enough, now you are having these loads of cash found in awkward places, and they are denying their ownership, which means that the whistleblower or the anti-corruption fight is having some impact. If those who are worshiping money are now dropping them anyhow, and when they are found out they deny ownership, it means we are making some progress, however small. But to go back to the whistleblower, it's not a knee-jerk approach. I just believe, however, it should be part of what I've talked about.
If
Are you
it's not a
asking me?
knee-jerk
Are you
approach,
asking me?
shouldn't we have a legal regime for it? Should it be left at the realm of policy? Because it could change. Government officials could deny for whatever reason. For example, this person who has blown the whistle on almost 14 billion naira now. Suppose at the end of the day it's found that the NIA had lied and that money was slush fund. Somebody somewhere blew the whistle. And if you are saying he's entitled to commission on it, even if you go to the last basic, which is 2%, 2% of 13 billion naira is not a small amount of money. And somebody in government could say, wow, this is a lot of money. How can we give this kind of money to an individual? Government can change his mind, or government officials can change their mind, because it's just a policy. It's not cast in any iron. It's not law.
Okay, let me.
So if it's not a knee-jerk approach, shouldn't we have a legal regime?
Let me respond to that. You see, you should first of all about the. You see, the question of paying 2% or 5% or 10% is neither here nor there. Your people say, "Oh, nothing, oh." You can translate that to your.
You spend money to look for money.
To look for money. Now, so if I'm going to give 10% of 14 billion naira to somebody without having the 14 billion, I would rather have the 14 billion minus 10% than not have the 40 billion at all. Since I don't have the resources of the anti-corruption agencies, I don't have enough staff. I don't have enough resources to actually monitor every household in Abuja, in Ikeja, in Lagos, in Kaduna, in Kano. So whistleblower becomes one of the elements that enable you to do those things. But because we are on air, the fundamental issue you raised, I want to respond to it. You must relate to the situation in which you are in. You have a situation whereby most elites, particularly political elites, are not actually very interested or sincere about the corruption fight. In particular, members of the National Assembly who are to make the laws are very unlikely to make laws that will
turn back and hurt them.
That is part of the hooks I'm talking about equality, some of our system. Yes, is that Magus confirmation. It's not question of merit or demerit of the man now. Me, I think he's doing a fairly good job. But to say that it's confirmation would depend on a group where 15 of them, powerful ones, actually have cases or are likely to have cases before this apparent no-nonsense man. That's part of the disadvantages or the abuses of the system. I don't know where you are getting my point.
I do.
About 10 to 15 members of the Senate have cases or are likely to have cases before the man who says, I'm going to deal with all of you in terms of corruption. And then they are the ones now to determine her. But it's legal. Their position is legal. But is it just? Therefore, that is why a president who wants to fight corruption in a democratic system must find a way to maneuver to do the needful. So when you are saying there must be a law for it, there must be a National Assembly, whatever, you are forgetting the context in which we are in. Note that this same assembly, all over the country, not just National Assembly, they have passed various laws recommending death penalty for kidnappers and ransom takers. Abi?
Yeah.
How come, with the danger that corruption does to us, to the well-being, to the morale of workers, to the ineptitude of the public services, to the judiciary, to the institutions of learning, and so on and so forth, how come they have never thought of instituting the death penalty against corruption? After all, whether traditionally or according to modern science, the weight of an offense determines the weight of the punishment. So looking at the weight of corruption relative to kidnapping and ransom taking, the weight of corruption is more serious. Not only that, one is an individualized offense in which individuals suffer. The other one is the whole society, the present generation, the future generation. Don't you think the weight of the punishment should reflect that? No, I'm not a supporter of death penalty. I told you before.
Here we are caught between legality and equity.
Yes, right. I'm not. I don't want people to get me wrong. I'm not a supporter of death penalty. I think death penalty is a favor to somebody who is executed. Yes, that's my position. Not because of the humanitarian argument. To me, it is not enough punishment. Yoruba people say have to say eko menyatin. Somebody who is dead, does not know whether you are burning with fire or whether you are
wrapping
or you are
wrapping
in gold or in rags.
Are put in a gold casket.
Right. So that is why I believe death penalty. No, I want somebody who has decimated this country in terms of corruption to actually be in prison, serve for about 10 years, let his family, let his friends know this is what he has done, and let others know. Do you know he's afraid of the prisons more? The elites. Yeah. The common people are not. In fact, a lot of people you send to prison, it's like you are doing them a favor. Oh. Shelter, 3 square meals, clothes, security. Nobody's going to attack them. But immediately you put an elite in that place within 1 week, he will confess to even offense he didn't commit because they are used to.
Or he will become sick, and he can only be treated abroad.
So that is why I'm not for death. I'm not for death penalty. I'm just saying that the assemblies, the lawmakers, are partakers in this matter. So that is why you have to think out of the box. And I was suggesting the task force. This task force will be made up of people of integrity from different professions, and they be empowered by the president. That first, you should be allowed to tell the population that anybody you know that has stolen money, whether it's 10 or 5 years ago, or yesterday, or currently, bring to our notice. And you tell people too who have stolen money, can you come voluntarily and give and tell us what you have done? And we say, okay, we take whatever we can take and say go and say no more. Now, of course, it has to be the value, the current value.
Truth and reconciliation.
No,
not
reconciliation.
Except that this one,
not reconciliation.
It's not reconciliation. Restitution. Truth and restitution.
Restitution. Okay. Because you know why? Because they are so numerous. If you go back to 10, 15 years ago, there is this man, former head of service, Orosayi. Now, nobody is talking about it again. Erastus Akínbọ́lá, nobody is talking about it again. So in about another 10 years, we may not be talking about Andrew Yakubu or Bade again. So that is why it is important for people to know that however long ago you committed that offense, you give the impression that we can still catch up with you. So if I could finish what I was trying to just tell you. Yeah. So you have this task force. They are open to the public. You can come by yourself. Okay? And confess. And if you confess and we discover later that you did not actually tell the truth, those are the kind of files you will pass to EFCC.
Or you told half truth.
Or you told half truth.
You stole 10 billion, you confessed to only
1 billion. We get to know because also the truth, the whistleblowers who will be anonymous will be allowed to take that immediately the thing works to get actual refund, restitution, you get a percentage. It may be 1%, it may be 2%, it may be whatever. But like I said, you need money to look for money because the EFCC, the ICPC cannot be all over the place. It is impossible. Maybe you don't know, ICPC and EFCC are not even well funded beyond salary of their staff. Most of the projects they engage in are by donors. Yeah. So why is it that if you are losing to a particular crime hundreds of billions, trillions, why will you not fund your agencies to actually pursue.
The
staff of ICPC, EFCC should be quadrupled, as it were.
All right. I need to find out what the response of government to this suggestion has been. But before then, let me quickly read some tweets. Ketcher says, please, Benga, something harsh has to be done to victims of corruption in Nigeria. Is it the victims that something harsh has to be done to, or the perpetrators? If not, it will, or an impossible case to deal with. I don't think it is the victim.
He means the perpetrators.
Yes, the perpetrators.
Perpetrators.
And the Owu Victor Lisa says, Benga, no matter the negativity thrown at APC and Buhari, he brought back sanity to a bastardized, corrupt, failed Nigerian image. That's Aniowu Victor Lisa. Simiyu says, with the level of lying and the manipulations at various levels of authority, there's going to be mental health problems in Nigeria. Then Dele Jackson Merge, sir, this is the peak of reckless spending of taxpayers' money by government officials. How can we have sustainable development in Nigeria? I think he said something before that, because that is not standing well. Then Kayla Megwa says, Kayla Megwa, always a pleasure to listen to Professor Odekunle. Unbiased opinions are rare today, and he's making all kinds of sense today. And then Simu again, the order of the day and the leaders with smiling faces lie to their people, then there's serious cause for alarm. Let me get back to you. What is the response of government to this suggestion that you have made?
Well, being an academic and of my own type, I'm not, you can't call me an establishment person. The thinking of establishment is usually don't rock the boat. The response of government will be, it has to be fine-tuned. And the response is that to be fine-tuned, and not only that, the response is similar to yours. Oh, there is a need to go to National Assembly
to have a lot to back it up.
To have a lot to back
Otherwise,
it up.
some persons might challenge it.
No, yeah, you could challenge it. It is okay. If you challenge it, it will be responded to. And I've not finished. This task force now will also have a criteria in which they will apply the law as in the law books, which says you cannot, if you are living beyond your means, you can be asked questions. So this kind of task force will be able to say, you were permanent secretary 5 years ago. We discover you have 10 houses. It's important, where did you get the money? Now you have this formula which you apply randomly or systematically to those who have held offices. It may take, you may only get 5%, but that 5% will send a message. Then meanwhile, I believe that government needs to take about 1,000 hungry, angry young people, graduates from various disciplines, law, economics, business, criminology, accounting, banking, who they will indoctrinate.
Make them sufficiently angry.
And send them to the World Bank and the like, or UK and so on and so forth, to train them about forensic attack on corruption. Bring them back.
And unleash them on the system.
Surreptitiously into the maybe 2 per ministry. And then you put some of them as blood transfusion to ICPC and EFCC to replace some of the corrupt staff there now. So these are the things that, these are some of the elements of the task force I was proposing. It's not illegal, but it's out of the box.
All right, we have to go. Always a pleasure listening to you. Okoyemi Yek says the anti-corruption response should be systemic strategy and not an open fight. Let us involve all stakeholders in the response. And that is where the problem is, when you involve all the stakeholders. Like your committee, for instance, the president thinks, let me bring together some eminent Nigerians to advise me. Some other persons are already summoning you to appear before them.
But we are advisory, and we try to encourage the agencies to have an approach that is not the usual.
All right, Prof, we have to go. Thank you so much. Ogaji, as usual, the looters will not be indicted after all the noise. It is expedient that government starts to prosecute and jail defaulters. That's Dele Jackson Merge. Eguado told Jeff, corruption is really fighting back, but we shall prevail. Thank you, Prof.
It's my pleasure.
Professor Femi Odekunle is a member of the Presidential Advisory Council Against Corruption, PACAC. He's a renowned criminologist as well. Thanks, Prof. Always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much, sir. All right, time is always short, particularly when we are discussing an interesting topic, but we'll be back tomorrow, maybe looking at something different. Enjoy the rest of the day, stay out of trouble so that we can see tomorrow. My name is Benga Aruleba. Enjoy the day.